One, and that's two. Hi, I'm Mike Morales. You are listening and watching Sipping Off the Cuff on Tequila Aficionado Media on all of our channels, networks. I'm here in San Antonio, sweltering San Antonio. That young man out there is
Jim Johnston in Youngstown, Ohio.
Jim. I am excited as hell. I am excited as hell because we are going to taste and dissect a brand that I will tell you is making a resurgence. I haven't seen this brand in a long time, and when I saw them on Instagram, I knew I had to get them. It's El Diamante del Cielo. Now, this may or may not look familiar to you folks. This is a new type of bottling. The old bottle is somewhat similar. In the old days, first of all, let me just say that this comes from a distillery called Fábrica de Tequilas Finos. It's 1472. And I don't normally go into the ins and outs of the tequila before we taste it. But this was the first distillery that I ever walked in.
Wow.
Yeah, this is Thursday when we're taping this, folks. I'm not sure when you're going to be able to see this. So this is my throwback Thursday. Okay. As
do
Jim
you want to say how long ago that was that you walked into that distillery?
That was in 2000. What year was that? 2000. That was the first Blue Agave tour, and I want to say it was like 2000, 2003, 4, 5, somewhere along there. This was the first distillery I was ever in, and this was way before Amber Beverage bought the distillery. That was just recently. Amber being Stoli. Amber's the United States division of Stoli, and the master distiller's name is Arturo Fuente. And in the old days, the old iteration of this brand, it used to come with a like a kind of a silken rope that reminded me a little bit of you know how you tie back curtains with like it had tassels.
Yeah.
Okay. That it came with a tassel, and his signature was on the top there, and it was called El Diamante del Cielo, and we call it Cielo Tequila. Even in those days, it was highly underrated. I loved it. I loved the pricing. And then one day it just disappeared. I'll tell you more of what the distillery looked like back then and all that. But anyway, I saw this tequila come back, and they sent us some really nice. You folks can follow them on Instagram. A company by the name of R.S. Lippman out of Nashville is importing these now with a new look, new information on the back. And as you can tell, I was so excited because I love this tequila. I don't normally, but I had to try the Blanco. So Jim, I've already broken the seal on this, but
That's okay. That's okay.
I won't share. I'm going to pour some in my Stasel Jarrito that we use for tequila.
Because sometimes I get excited too.
Well, it's like seeing an old friend. You know what I mean? And nice little bubbles on the little bit of lingering bubbles on it. It's just that I was so many brands. I did a really short video. You might have seen it on our Instagram stories, but I just did a short video yesterday, day before, about the gnome lists. I have gnome lists that go back from 2002. And they were really thin. You could print them out because there were only like 640 some odd brands. And then they get bigger and bigger and bigger. And eventually I had to stop printing them out because they looked like phone books.
Yeah.
I was running out of ink and paper. And now we have, right here in July, we have up to over 1,400 brands. And I was always saddened by the tequila disappearing, this one in particular, because I was really fond of it. So that being said, we've poured some. We are looking through the jarrito. Beautiful legs and tears are not clinging, but they're streaming down beautifully. Let's see what our nose is like here. Oh.
That smells wonderful. Oh, that smells wonderful.
Wow. Yeah, when I, it had been so long, and my palate and my nose have gotten way more experience back than it was back then. But it even occurred to me at some point that there's even more character in this Blanco now than there was back then. And back then, I remember seeing the last time I saw Cielo, it was in cases at Costco. I mean, Costco, the big box store, Costco is notorious for, beating down the price and having these crazy sales on really good tequila. And this particular distillery, as a matter of fact, used to make the Costco's Kirkland signature. That was one of the first. That was one of the first places that made Kirkland for them. That's how much I know about this.
Don't know how I feel about a tequila called Kirkland Tequila. This sounds like it's
Kirkland's signature, but you know what? Everybody laughs about that, but they've always stuck to quality, which is really weird. They've always found the distilleries that would make it a quality product, but they beat down the price like hell. I mean, nobody was making any money on that, and they probably still aren't. But that doesn't deter Costco, because they want to be able to sell, their tequila to their customers, because it's a membership only. I mean, they'd be dumb not to, right?
Right.
It's almost like a control state.
Well, plus, if you're going to buy the Kirkland tequila, you're going to buy the giant vat of lime juice from them. You're going to buy the whole, the 60 tons of salt. You're going to get the whole thing. This has a really lovely kind of pepper and citrus nose on it.
Yep, and it's substantial.
Yeah,
it's almost on that. When I first opened it, that first pass, just the first pass, it was baked agave right away, and then it began to open up as the citrus notes. Wow. I'm ready to dive in if you are, man. I know that I don't. You tell me. It may not have opened up enough for you, but
yeah, let's do it. Let's give it a shot here.
Let's give it a shot. All right.
Oh wow. Oh wow.
That explosion in mid palate, from mid palate to the rear. Wow.
That is got a long finish. It's got what I would call, it's not a ton of spice, but it's like a sweeter spice. It's almost like, if you get a biting cinnamon, but there's a little sweetness to it, a little bite to it, but it's not too much on either side. And I got to tell you, at the front of my palate, I almost got, like when you get a really nice cigar and you first put it in your mouth to wet that cap, you get just a little bit of the vegetal leaf quality of it with the aged quality of the tobacco. This has that same kind of, the agave's got just a little bit of, like, it's settled a little bit, like it's rested.
Yeah,
but it's not, it hasn't been, but it's just, it's a subtle vegetal flavor that's I like that. I like that.
There's a substantial mouthfeel. The first time I opened the bottle, I just poured it in a snifter. I don't actually use these glasses for everyday sipping. I do on occasion, but when it comes to like seeing an old friend, I kind of already know what to expect. And you pour it in every other glass, it's going to taste and smell a little bit differently. But on this time, I almost got like just a light hint of anise, but on the retronasal, on the just after the finish, and you I start clearing my throat. I got just a hint of the anise, and I tell you what, I look and look and look for that now because some some blancos now have a ton of this anise that I'm going to assume, unless I taste or feel otherwise, that it's actually supposed to be there. Um, but wow, I'm going to go out on a limb and say I think that it's even more improved now, a few years later, than I remember back then. And again, I hadn't back then. I wasn't dissecting them a lot. It was just Alex and myself. Um, and we didn't have the glassware that we do now either. Now all we had were Riedels, and now this Jarrito just opens up all kinds of stuff that's hidden in there.
You said something about a baking spice aroma a little bit. Baked spices,
Well, baked agave, I think.
baked agave, but this has a raw spice quality to it. If you have a cinnamon donut, it tastes like cinnamon. But if you take cinnamon and put it on your mouth, the flavor profile is going to be different. And I think that's where that little anise hit comes in. Is it's got a raw spice quality to it, but it's not a bad raw spice quality.
No,
The floral agave sweetness on this with that raw spice quality makes for a very nice full flavor right up front on this thing.
Yep, I
Very
totally
nice.
agree. I was so impressed, and it was really gratifying to be able to. It was funny. R.S. Lippman, I had, we go through a certain process when we solicit tequilas, and when I saw the resurgence of this brand and the rebranding and the retooling that they did, and knowing what I knew then about the distillery, like I said, the old bottles, and I have my old bottles in storage elsewhere in another state, but you'd see Arturo Fuentes' signature. He was, if I'm not mistaken, this was even one of the first tequilas to actually have a signature of the master distiller. It was rare to see that. Even when I saw it was confusing in those days. You would go, "Who's Arturo Fuentes? He like the owner?" And I wasn't
The cigar guy bought this.
Yeah, right. And I wasn't even heavy into cigars, so that didn't even click for me. But I go, "Who's that?" So it wasn't until I put two and two together, I met Arturo Fuentes. He was the plant manager, as it was in those days. A plant manager and a master distiller are the same guy. All right, they're the same. They're the engineer who not only engineered the warehouse and the machinery. He's the guy who makes the final product. Okay, and he oversees a lot of final products. I know Mexican Moonshine, which is going to be renamed here shortly. That comes out of this distillery, and several others. You probably Rooster Rojo is a brand new one we have not been able to get. But it was, like I say, to have a signature of the guy there was confusing. And then when I met the man, he's very he's a scientist. He's not a he's very quiet, not a real people person back in those days. But the really cool part was when they took us into the tasting room. It sits above the barrel room. It was the first time I'd ever been exposed to a warehouse, a barrel room is what we call it. And they had a big, long, meeting table, and there were like 35 of us, and that table was big enough to seat us all, right? And we're all sitting there, and we look over to our left, depending on where you're sitting, and it's open. It's like a loft. The tasting room is a loft, and you look over the railing, and there are barrels and barrels of tequila resting.
Oh, that's cool.
And you're going, oh man! And this distillery is famous for tequilas like Tonalá, Sol Dios, I think is another one. That's one that you may have seen. It's a blue pyramid with a red cap on it, and it looks like a clown nose. This particular distillery is known for its porcelain bottles as well. I got lost in their warehouse.
That's cool.
Really kind of cool. It was like
that is cool.
It was my first distillery that I ever went to, and when I told that story to R.S. Lippman, they they were really nice about sending us out there, because it turns out, and as is most of the time, unless you've actually visited these distilleries, you don't know where they come from. You don't know a whole lot of it, and about it, and the people even that import them. Not everybody's been able to get to that distillery. It's just not feasible. So I was really. What do you think, man? Brand of Promise. Are we going to nominate this?
Absolutely. I think this is probably one of the best expressions of what untouched agave should taste like of any Blanco that we've had. This has a lot of the unprocessed, unbaked in, unrested. It's just but it's presented in a really nice package. I like the whole thing.
Yeah. What do you think of the new rebranding? You think it's something that we should?
Well, I don't know the old brand. I don't know what the bottle looked like in the past.
There was even less to it because they didn't have the see-through. It didn't have.
I do like this bottle though with the see-through. I mean, you don't
have to if you don't want to. I mean, it's not. It's just rebranding for the brand, for itself.
I like the idea that they had that little wax sealed tassel with the signature of the master distiller. That takes me. That takes me back to my whiskey side. I like that.
Yeah, it was kind of sad that it's missing, but hey, whatever. I think it's wonderful. I think it's a Brand of Promise nominee, and
I think this bottle could have nothing on it and just drink what's inside of it.
Yeah. I'm so looking forward to hearing your thoughts on the rest of the line, because they got a beautiful Reposado and an Añejo coming up, and well. There'll be more stories, but so far that's our take on Cielo Tequila, Silver Tequila, the brand new and improved, rebranded Cielo Tequila, coming in, being imported into Nashville. So if you guys are in the southern United States, or Nashville's become a big hotbed now for tequila. Yeah. I always knew it was going to be Nashville, Atlanta, the Carolinas. I think those would be the next hotbeds, even more so than Florida, actually. So you'll be seeing it there, and it's got some stiff competition because there's some really good tequilas coming into Nashville. So congratulations to them. Stick with us. We will have the entire line here for you. But as of now, I'm Mike Morales here in San Antonio. That gentleman out there is
Jim Johnston in Youngstown, Ohio.
You've been watching and listening to Sipping Off the Cuff on Tequila Aficionado Media on all of our channels. And don't forget to subscribe wherever you get your podcast, wherever you download those, like on Spotify or iTunes. If you're watching us on YouTube, subscribe, hit the red button, hit the notification bell, and whatever you do, tomar sabiamente.
Sip wisely.